folks. This is Aisha Goss, Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Cultural Power, and I am here in front of the historic Stonewall Inn with trans activists, artists, and all-around baddie, Tourmaline, and we are here to discuss her new book, Marsha, The Joy and Defiance of Marsha P. Johnson. Thank you
Hi.
so much for taking time to talk to me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It means so much
Yes.
to be here.
Of course, from the moment I walked up and saw you taking beautiful pictures to the conversation we had ahead of this, I knew this would be great. And so thank you for being here with us today. At Cultural Power, we talk about culture being a space where joy is not just present, it's woven into the fabric of what we do. Can you talk to me about why you chose to focus on the joy of Marsha P. Johnson for this book?
So, Marsha had and continues to have a deep impact on the LGBTQIA plus community. Her actions here at Stonewall in June of 1969, we still celebrate every Pride, right? That's why we celebrate Pride. But one of her particular political principles was around joy, right? She wasn't ignorant or delusional about the real harsh conditions that faced her life. She knew that in the 60s, for instance, if she went outside expressing her truth, she could be arrested and put in jail, right? There were laws governing what trans and gender nonconforming people could actually wear. But she also knew that in her joy, she had access to a greater reserve of clarity, so she could transmute a problem into a solution when she was reveling in joy. She wasn't putting a happy face sticker over the problems, she was aware of them, but she was knowing that she had access to her full power in a moment when the problems were so real, and she knew that was really important.
That is really beautiful to hear, and I love the emphasis on the word power. Power is something that we don't always feel access to, but Marsha was definitely a person who oozed and you could really feel her understanding of her own power. Can you talk to us a bit about how Marsha used her cultural power to fuel her activism?
Absolutely. Every day, part of her joyful practice was she was saying all the time, hey, police, hey, person on the street, hey, person who doesn't understand my beauty, you don't get to determine how I feel about me, right? Like she was not allowing other people to determine her understanding of her beauty, of her power, of her joy. And that's just one of her joyful practices. And so it was really important for her to connect with other low-income, poor, gender nonconforming, and trans people when she first got to New York City in 1963 and then brought them down here to Stonewall. She also knew that she couldn't always be in her joy. Like some days, it feels so good to move from a feeling of fear to one of rage and anger. And that's what happened here at Stonewall. That was a pathway back to her power. And so she had many pathways back to her power. She was performing 2 times a day with the off-Broadway group Hot Peaches. She was going into HIV/AIDS wards and making sure that her community wasn't forgotten. She was performing on the street just through the beautiful adornment that she had. She organized AIDS walks and AIDS dances at the emergence of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. It was so important to her power to show up in her joy, in her beauty, in her cultural work, right? She was an actual artist. She was an actual performer. And so to me, that was really important to put at the forefront.
You know, there's so many parallels to the environment that Marsha lived in, the environment that we're living through now, um, and the power of culture and joy to be as transformative now as it was at that point in history. So, from studying Marsha and the joy and her artistic expression, you are many, as my mom would say, actuals too. You're actually a filmmaker and an artist and an activist, all of these things. How is studying Marsha's joy and cultural power influenced and impacted your own path?
Absolutely. So about 20 years ago, right here on Christopher Street, I found a community that I felt home and joyfully. It was, I was a teen, and it was, like queer, trans, gender conforming people of color, and he really embraced me right here on Christopher Street. And I quickly got to organizing, right? There were some issues that continue to today where the residents and the police didn't want us showing up and showing out and taking up space. So we did campaigns and we did rallies and made signs and did education about our community. But what I didn't completely understand then, that I fully revel in now, is that that's Marsha's legacy. She cultivated that space for us to emerge and connect with each other. And so she was shaping me at a very young age and continues to today. And very concretely, right here on Christopher Street, I shot the film Happy Birthday Marsha with my friend Sasha Wurtzel. We filmed it right across the street, and we filmed right here at this bar. And Maya Taylor, who played Marsha, was standing right where you're sitting right now. And that was 2016, so 9 years ago. And also in 2015, we filmed too. And so to me, it's just always been just such a powerful reserve, or source for me to tap into, is Marsha's legacy and the ways that she is still creating art, culture, and a deeper understanding of our beauty and power.
It's hard to move to the next question because that was so beautifully articulated around how you are carrying on the legacy in so many ways and with so many connection points. And you referenced when you first arrived here, there were things that the neighborhood wanted and things that the community or didn't want, and things that perhaps the government at that time didn't want. Are there particular policy fights that you are experiencing now, or that have you ready to jump on the biggest soapbox you can find and scream to the rafters? Like, what are those policy moments for you right now?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, before I was an artist in the way that I am now, I was an organizer. And one of the campaigns that I was working on, one that I was the Sylvia Bear Law Project, was around access to healthcare. It's so important for trans and gender nonconforming people, all people, to have access to our basic needs, including housing, healthcare, jobs, right? And so we had a big campaign because New York State refused to allow low-income people who were transgender, gender nonconforming access to Medicaid. We said that's just ridiculous. Our healthcare needs are not any more less important than cis people's healthcare needs. And so we campaigned and we won. We got New York State to repeal this regulation. And so that was 2014. So my math that was like 11 years ago, right? But so I think that helped me understand that these conditions are shapeable. We're in a moment where state after state is passing an abundance of anti-trans bills, right? We can't turn on the news or open our phone without hearing and knowing what's going on to our community. But I think we also are the beneficiaries of all the people who came before that helped shape these conditions so that they are more livable for our community.
That is so true. And in the middle of all the fights and all of the battles that we have, fought before and continue to fight for our communities, for our families, for ourselves, we have to remember to take care of ourselves. We have to remember to refill our own cups so we can continue to pour into those that love us. And so my last question, thank you again for your time, is what is bringing you joy in this moment? How are you filling your cup in a joyous way?
Honestly, seeing our community turn up the volume of our lives. Yes, conditions are really hard. There's no arguing about that. But we are using every opportunity possible to remind each other that we are beautiful and powerful, that we come from a really rich lineage of people shaping the world. And so to me, I think about Marsha in 1963 when she moved to Times Square and she would rent these hourly hotels. They called them hot spring hotels because whether it was winter, spring, summer, or fall, you couldn't crack a window and the room was boiling. But they used that as a place to care for each other, to calibrate to knowing that they too could shape the world. And they dreamed in those places. So for me, I love dreaming. I love imagining, like, what would it be like to walk outside and have a greater sense of my power and my beauty. And that to me brings me so much joy. I love people dream harnessing, making those dreams material and visible every day. So that also brings me so much joy. On a personal level, like just sharing this book with so many people. Marsha's been such a gift in my life for over 20 years now. And like Augusto Machado, who just walked inside, was friends with Marsha from those early Times Square days in 1963. So just sitting and listening and receiving people's words brings me so much joy. Yeah.
Well, this conversation has brought me so much joy.
Oh, same.
So much joy, so much inspiration. And just congratulations on the book. Congratulations on your work, and thank you. As a artist, I thank you. As a Black woman in this space, I thank you. And as a cultural strategist, I thank you. And we thank you. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.